Welcome back to Block TV. Time for Cryptonomics, and it appears the race is on. China, ladies and gentlemen, is officially in the blockchain race and the crypto world. This weekend did not just see a bullish spike in Bitcoin rising back from a bearish fall, but also the world's second largest economy, fastly vying to become the first, make its fintech status official, with both a crypto legislation and a blockchain love song by its leader Xi Jinping. I did it. And with everything we need to know about this quite remarkable bit of news, I'm joined in studio by Asher Westrup Evans. Asher, first of all, thank you for, needless to say, thank you for being with me.
Pleasure.
But China really having a crypto weekend.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, coming out so strongly in favor of, I mean, and we need to be careful with distinctions here because it is a blockchain, not Bitcoin. How they do in terms of cryptocurrencies and how they choose to embrace that will be selective, I'm sure. It's not going to, it certainly hasn't opened up with the free-for-all, but Xi Jinping came out standing before the Communist Party conference and stating that they need to innovate, they need to use the blockchain technology as a source of innovation. It is a powerful impact on the whole region, and then shortly afterwards.
And the setting makes it incredibly, exactly, the setting makes it incredibly not just official, but this is the way to go. And I just want to tell you one thing about blockchain. I think you're totally right, not to confuse that with Bitcoin. But blockchain at the end of the day is the building block.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is the building block.
It is the building block. And I want to touch on that point you raised just there as well, because in terms of the setting, exactly right. He chose to do it at a Communist Party meeting, the big National Communist Party meeting. The patriotic overtones of that obviously are not lost on Xi Jinping, saying that this has become a national nation-building project, something that's always very critical in China and really gives prominence.
And sends, I think, a message also to the Western world in a way.
Certainly.
Entirely.
Certainly
yes.
so. And they followed up that, not just with words, but with immediate action. Immediately, we saw Chinese universities coming out offering blockchain-related courses. We saw the People's Daily, the main government newspaper in China, coming out with headlines regarding blockchain. We saw, as you mentioned in your introduction, that the Standing Committee come out and pass that cryptography law, talking about promoting and emerging regulatory and legal challenges in commercial cryptography and getting that out there. Again, that's even
from the country that banned Bitcoin.
Exactly. Yeah. That's even the precursor to blockchain. So they're really doing this from the ground up. They're taking this as a full national project, and when the weight of the Chinese government and Chinese national sort of procedure gets on a project like this, wow, yeah, that's a lot of people, that's a lot of intelligence, there's a lot of capacity and a lot of money that can be thrown at this world, and it could be an absolute game changer.
So many things to ask you. Let me start with, do we think that, I mean, needless to say, we're sitting here after a weekend that saw an insane spike, a very bullish move on Bitcoin's part, that after quite a flaccid, how should I put this, quite a flaccid week in that respect. Do we think those two are connected? Needless to say, Twitter is a buzz, which Xi Jinping just said blockchain and Bitcoin has spiked. But again,
exactly. Twitter is a buzz, as was WeChat, as was Baidu, all the Chinese social media outlets as well. But I spoke with Dovi Wan yesterday, the founder of Primitive Ventures, who had an interesting take on all this that sort of might leave viewers a little surprised. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, because the news was broke like yesterday 7 p.m. like China Standard Time, and so we haven't seen any like major price movement like right after that news update. And because the news update was actually aired to over like 1 billion local Chinese, and so it's just weird that if like the price is like driven by local Chinese trader and like there's no any sign, right? And then when like the Western media broke it, and so like that's when we see the major pump. And so like that's why my hypothesis is like the entire so majority of like the price rally is actually driven by like Western trader, and like the Western trader, I personally think like the Western trader kind of overreact, and because like 30% pump in like less than 30% pump in less than 24 hours is probably the third largest like price gain like ever in the history, and like the last 2 times like these things happen, and like Bitcoin was like trading under $1. So if you think about the market capacity and volume and just like liquidity, and then so in order to pump Bitcoin for like 30%, like there's a like gigantic amount of
It's actually an interesting point. So 3 times in the past, Bitcoin spiked by 30%.
Yes, yeah, this was the third largest spike, although the other two occurred in 2010 and 2011 respectively. Very different market. Bitcoin value under $1 at those points, much less liquidity. Certainly not adding the 50 billion that we saw yesterday flow into the market. But the major point there that Dovey was making seemed to be that it was Western traders and Western interests that seemed to be driving it. It didn't happen until about 7 hours after Xi Jinping made his announcement to about 1 billion Chinese traders, when the Western media picked up on it, and suddenly you started seeing these price spikes. So it's interesting to note that perhaps there was a little overreaction. Now we have seen a pullback. I mean, we spiked at 10,500 yesterday. Now at time of filming,
it's staving off.
Yeah. Now at time of filming, we're hovering around 9,200. So it's, you know, it's telling to say that there was such a radical spike. But yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. Given the way that we were reporting just last week, how sentiment was down across the board, how you know, businesses were starting to pull back in, how after the first half of 2019 there'd sort of been a cooling off period, and everyone realized that you know, exponential run up needed to be sort of calmed and the waters calm. To have another day like this, one for the history books.
No, one for the history books entirely. And I'm going to actually counter Dovey for a second and think, you know, the fact that that spike didn't happen the second Xi Jinping uttered the word blockchain, but still within the span of 7 hours. Let's think about it for a second. Most of, you know, Bitcoin's the people who dabble with Bitcoin are on all sides of the globe at the end of the day. And I don't think one can look at one, you know, time zone and say they did not react in time to that, you know, statement. You know, one can look at that as actually within a span of 24 hours. This
is it the current news cycle? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's definitely a point to be made, and it is something we always have to remember. This is not one time zone. This is not one set of people. This
Which makes Bitcoin fabulous in that respect.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it certainly does. But I mean, it is telling to note how I suppose Chinese you know, internal traders and crypto or blockchain or enthusiasts sort of worked with it, because as well, what came out of that initially was interesting. As I said, those government-backed initiatives came out, you know, within the day or two afterwards. Another interesting thing, the first application blockchain application developed by the Chinese Communist Party, or by a Chinese Communist Party member, came out. Telling what it was, Yael, it was an application designed for Communist Party members to put their pure intent, that was Dovey's translation right there, pure intent of their loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party onto a blockchain, immutable, distributed for time immemorial. So that's also a telling point as to what blockchain may look like in the hands of the Communist Party.
It's in the hands, and that's the thing about, I think, that we've all been reporting and touching on over the course of the last year, what blockchain can do to a certain agenda.
Right. We think about, I mean, blockchain, when it was first you know, utilized and developed, you know, in conjunction with Bitcoin, it was about privacy, it was about decentralization, it was about, you know, abilities for anonymity.
Here it will serve a completely different purpose in a very good, with very good technology.
Certainly, with the most updated technology built into a network that is all-encompassing, you know, a total, you know, globally encompassing network. So what that looks like is interesting, and that bleeds very well into the sort of clash of civilizations narrative that came out in the wake of the Libra hearing, with Mark Zuckerberg on the Hill speaking in Congress, in which he kept bringing up that issue of China is going to develop this. If we don't do it, they'll beat us to the punch, and then where will we be?
Brilliant point, because that almost leads me to think that, you know, in a way, my next question to you is, what do we think, and we're going to theorize, what do we think this will do to American legislators, to the other part of the globe that seems to be lagging behind when it comes to utilizing this technology, which China just announced is the next big national thing in a big red room. That said, before we continue on that, China coming out with, and I'm a firm believer that everything is planned, but coming out both with the crypto law and this love song to blockchain, to the technology by its leader. At the end of the day, we also know, and there's rumor and supposition, not even rumor, but that a Chinese digital national coin is about to be launched very soon, right?
Very soon. Look, speculation is still the name of the game in this front, but it is expected to be launched, some say, as early as sometime this year, before the end of 2019.
It gives us 3 months.
Exactly. Yeah. Perhaps early in 2020, but around that time, China is going full bore with the central bank digital currency. perhaps not a true crypto, but certainly, utilizing some elements of blockchain
One can argue neither is
technology.
Libra.
Exactly. Utilizing some elements of cryptographic and or blockchain technology. Interesting to see what impact that will have. Again, playing into that same narrative that Mark Zuckerberg said, that we need to get in this game because China will beat us to the punch, and that first mover advantage could be unbelievable, Yael. The ability to have a digital currency that you can distribute instantly around the globe. Does the renminbi then become the main source of international trade?
Or the main source of international transfer?
Yeah, the unit of account, the international unit of account, does that take over in certain oil markets or in gold markets and commodity markets? I mean, who's to say? The wider scale economics of how it all pans out is complex and in-depth and certainly beyond my scope here right now. But I'll say, Yael, that first mover advantage seems to me a very powerful one.
Very powerful one, and I think you're totally correct. And as we mentioned, the race is on. China in the blockchain game, as so astutely announced by its leader with the crypto law. And yes, I believe the other side of the globe needs to start listening. That was it for Cryptonomics. We'll be right back.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.